Yeah.
My name is Inspector Tanya Dominguez, and this is Jack. Jack was one of 185 animals seized on one day from an intensive breeding facility. And I adopted him, and he's been with me for about 4 years.
So my name's Tyson. I am an RSPCA inspector, and this is my beautiful beagle, Lottie. I rescued her when she was about 2.5. She was training to be a detector dog, but failed that course miserably. But she succeeded in being a much-loved family pet.
So I'm Scott, I'm the Chief Inspector for RSPCA, and I'm here today with Daisy. So Daisy was surrendered to inspectors around 8 weeks ago, going through some treatment and rehab, learning how to be a puppy and hopefully find a home that she can spend the rest of her life at. I think the role of an inspector can be quite a challenging role. It's not just all about prosecuting people or fining people, it's trying to make that difference in an animal's life and also in the person's life.
When I first started as an inspector, my first case that went to court was involving a beautiful little golden retriever puppy called Harvey. He was put into a suitcase while his owner was having his unit assessed, and he wasn't allowed to have animals. And his plan was to return after his day and get the puppy out of the suitcase and bring him back to the unit. But a member of public had heard the poor puppy sort of wailing and crying in the stairwell, went to the puppy's rescue and then reported the incident to the RSPCA. So that beautiful little puppy was successfully rehomed. Harvey's just a beautiful dog, one of those dogs that just has no idea that something so terrible happened to him.
One of the most memorable cases that I can recall, we had a report that came through about someone had seen something that looked like a horse laying down on its side. And so I was called out and I raced out, and I remember getting to the property and seeing this white mound and thinking, could that be the horse? And as I'm walking down the gully, I can see that there's all these slide marks where the horse had been down for days, and as he's tried to get up, he'd just slide further down and further down and further down. And I found him almost at the bottom of that gully. And you could see he'd been struggling for quite a long time. There was lots of paddle marks and there was feces. And to be honest, when I first saw him, I thought that he was dead. But as I got closer, I realised that he was alive, but quite unwell and probably dying. Obviously, then my instincts kicked in. What do I do? In my opinion, as an inspector, I believe that horse was cruel to be kept alive and needed to be euthanized. So I had to call for a veterinarian and I had to call for backup from my colleagues. Time moves very slowly when you're watching an animal die. So the only thing I could do, so I'm going to get emotional. The only thing I could do to make his time in this world a bit better while we waited for him to get the help he needed was to hold his head and wave the flies away from his eyes. About 40 minutes later, the veterinarian arrived and she agreed with me that the horse was cruel to be kept alive. Kindest thing was to euthanize that horse. When you're in the moment, I don't feel those extreme emotions. It's very much, how are you going to resolve the situation? How are you going to get help to the animal? What's your next step?
A number of years ago, I was performing the role of an inspector and a team leader. I was at a point in my career where I was frustrated and I was overwhelmed with the types of animal cruelty that I was seeing just day in, day out. And it was really impacting on my mental health and also my relationship with my family. I think at that particular point in time, I had made a decision that the RSPCA and certainly the inspectorate wasn't for me. It was after 5 o'clock. I'd gone to pick my son up from work. I'd received a phone call from our contact centre where they said they had a gentleman on the phone who was walking his dog in some remote bushland, and he had witnessed a guy pull up and take what he thought was some puppies out of the car, hit them over the head and throw them in the bush. Receiving that information at first, I thought, this can't be right. I arrived on the scene and try and process what I was looking at in the bush, which was basically a crime scene. I remember I saw one puppy that was a lot of blood on the ground from this puppy. Its head was red. Then I saw another one, and then another one, and another one, and there were 8 puppies and one live one. The only thing I had was a washing basket in the back of my car because I'd finished work, and photographing and picking up a dog and putting a puppy which was deceased in a basket, and going around and doing that. And I mean, even trying to explain it, I can clearly see this in my head. Number one focus was to get this live puppy to the vet. There was only one vet open, which was about 25 minutes away. So it felt like it took forever. That pup screamed the whole time it was on my lap, and I wasn't even touching it. I mean, she had blood coming from her ears, her eyes, the whites of her eyes were bloodshot. It was quite difficult. Immediately, we treated the surviving puppy. She had some swelling in the brain. There was some medication around that. She had these issues going on with, some bleeding. But the biggest issue trying to deal with her as well was she was petrified. So trying to give her medication to calm her down. She was named Lucky from the media. There was a lot of media and a lot of social media on this because there was a bit of a manhunt for the person that did this. Within 24 hours, in the assistance of New South Wales Police, we had a person in custody. He was put before the court. Ultimately, the outcome was there is a lifetime ban. He is not allowed to be the person in charge, care control of an animal for the rest of his life. And he served a custodial sentence. Lucky was adopted by a lady who lived in my suburb, and I get to see her from time to time, which is twofold. You see her and it brings back a lot of different things, but I also get to see the dog that she's developed into, which is a normal, happy dog that's thriving in a home environment, which is a great thing. I feel myself getting emotional about it. It's obviously, this particular case had such an impact on my career, and I believe that's why I'm where I am today. To me, to try and process in my mind how any person could intentionally harm an animal, but to take them into a remote bushland area and do that, I will never understand. 5 years on, I still don't understand it.
You can't generally go home and talk to your friends or your family about some of the things that we see. A lot of the things that we deal with are matters that may become before the courts, so we can't be talking about them with the general public, but also you don't want to be sharing some of the horror stories that we see with your friend and family. We want to protect them from that.
I'd really like to separate my personal life at home from my professional life at the RSPCA dealing with animal cruelty.
It's normally when you drive home is when it hits you.
So we generally call each other, and most inspectors will spend a lot of the time, if they're driving, they'll be talking to another inspector on the road.
Getting up the next morning, putting that uniform on, some days you can soldier on through it, other days you go, you know what, I can't do this today. To me, when I sit and reflect on the staff that I manage and the inspectors that are out there in the field every day, to me, in my mind, they're heroes. They're to put up with and to see what they see every day. They deserve a medal, each and every one of them.
Unfortunately, I think there'll always be work for me to do. I just want to have the greatest impact on sort of animal welfare outcomes that I can.
We are the voice for the voiceless. I know that might sound a bit cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, every day before I knock on, I know that I'm making a difference.
What keeps me getting up every day is knowing that I can change the life of an animal or a person.
That's what motivates me.
I could not imagine doing anything else. Come on, Jack.
Come on. Let's go. Good check.